Guys, what's going on? It's Dave, Mr. White LS1. Thank you for joining me today in the CarburetorSuck.com garage. This is going to be the second video of the trans swap that we're doing. So we're going from SM465 LS, it's LS engine, so we're going from SM465 205 to Turbo400 and 205. I think this is somewhere like a little bit newer because it did use metric bolts for the torque converter, and so I did want to be as thorough as possible on this. And so I know that sometimes when I do my builds, I kind of assume that some people watch like all the old stuff with the K20 and the K10 and stuff, and I know that sometimes, you know, some people are just tuning in for this. So I'll try to be as thorough as possible and try not to skip over anything. So as you'll recall in the last video, there's an adapter, there's a sleeve that goes into the back of the crank, and it goes to the snout of the torque converter, and that is it's a Hughes part, and the Hughes part number is an HP3795, and that is that's the number for it on Summit. So the number for it on Summit Racing is HUP-HP3795. All right, so I just wanted to let you know, and so that adapts, make sure that the spacing is right, and that the torque converter is not going to go blah, 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 and fall apart. And then the bolts that I'm using, that I used for the flex plate to the crank, they're an ARP bolt. The bolt kit is a 244-2901, 244-2901. Alrighty, and yeah, they're nice bolts. The bolts that I'm using to torque down, the bolts that I'm using for the torque converter, they're ARP bolts. There are 3 of them. They're metric dealies. They're 230-7304. 230-7304. So I think that the transmission I have, I think it's like a 85, 86-ish, something like that. So it's some, you know, stuff was starting to turn more metric then. So anyways, these were the ones that I needed, and they're like a 10 millimeter by 1.5, or 10 millimeter by 1.5 inch. So apparently they're for the 200, the 700, 4L60, 4L60E. Anyways, I figured I'd run over that with you so you have the part numbers for that, so I wasn't skipping anything. Let me find out exactly the size of the bolts that I used to go from the transmission into the engine, and I'll be back in a flash. All right, so the 5 bolts that hold the transmission to the engine, and pretty much the same bolts that held the bell housing to the engine for the SM465, but the 5 bolts that are used, they're an M10 by 1.5 by 40. Yeah, so that is the bolt size, and I think I just got like the 8.8s. Excuse me, I think I just got the 8.8s, and they seem to hold up. So that's it. So I figured I would go over like that important stuff with you. I did want to mention one thing. So I appreciate you guys when you watch the video asking questions and giving me hints and helpful stuff like that. Somebody asked earlier, Blake Bush, he said, since you have a Vortec already, why didn't you go with the 4L80? And I just pretty much, you know, told him that, you know, the price of the tranny and the adapter, because I want to run the 205. And, you know, I pretty much thought that with the 4L80, that you had to use like adapters and do machining or whatever to kind of mate it with anything. I didn't really think that you could do like a pretty cheap option. And so what he was telling me is he has a 99 4L80 with an NP208 from like an 80s Chevy that had an SM465, so probably like the round 465 obviously, but he used an adapter. It's a 1572 4745, and that's 1572 4745. So he said that adapter was like $60, and the 208 and the 4L80E went right together, bango flango. And so that's a pretty good option for when I do my other truck, because I might go with an 80. You know what I'm saying? And then, yeah, so I think that would be cool. So anyways, I wanted to run that by you guys, just because that's kind of a cheap option than having to dig around and buy a frickin' $500 adapter to put a frickin' 205 behind it. You know what I mean? 208s are pretty strong. I mean, they're just, you know, they're chain driven and they're slip yoke. You have to just get a slip yoke eliminator if you're going to be doing hard wheeling. But, I mean, for the most part, for just a cruiser 4x4, that would be awesome. Let's see here. Anything else? Somebody asked me about the headers that are on here. They are the Schoenfeld Headers, and the part number is a 1302 LS1. 1302 LS1. So, and like I said, I did have to trim both sides of the transmission. There was like big, like ears that kind of came off, and I think it was mostly just kind of like to mount the flywheel cover. But I'm probably not going to use that. I don't know. I cut it down a lot to fit, but I'm not sure if I'm going to use it. But anyway, so those were the questions. There was a bunch more. They weren't really like right, like questions like directly in regarding the build. They were just about, you know, cables and shifter cables and stuff like that. So Texas Oil was saying that he got a nice cable shifter that was like $150, like a low car setup, and he said it's been working good because his stock one would bind up when he was out wheeling in his K5. So I had never noticed. I didn't wheel it crazy when I had my automatic in the K5 before, so I never noticed any problems with it binding up. But I'm going to have to test this one out. It is pretty close to one of the headers, so I'm going to have to check that out. I don't know if it's the header or the shackle. When we get under there, we'll take a look. But anyways, I wanted to run through this and just answer a couple questions about that. And also, here's another one. Fuel 28, he said he's going to be doing the swap in his 89 Blazer to an LQ4 TH400 MP205, and he wanted to keep the drive shafts that he currently has. And he said that he had been measuring and he wanted to make sure. So I used the advanced adapter motor mounts, and so it actually has two locations. You can actually move the engine up or have it back in pretty much in the stock location. So once it's bolted to that mount, then you still use the same 3-bolt motor mount. I don't know, motor mount bracket, I guess, and it goes to the clamshell bracket. Anyways, but anyway, so when you put it in that location, it's in its stock location, so everything is the same. The only thing that changes between the two engines is you don't have the two holes are missing to mount the transmission or a bell housing. 2 bolts are missing, both holes. You don't have one at the top and you don't have one on the side. I'm pretty sure the old ones had 2 more bolts, but I think so. Anyways, and then it's just the distance between the flange of the back of the block and the crank. So on a normal small block, the crank sticks out here, and on this one, it's like I don't know. It's like almost a ½ inch. It's shorter. Yeah. So anyways, that's all. All right, that's it. I'm going to get on it today. I've got some stuff to do, but I wanted to answer those questions for you guys. So if you have more questions like these, I will, if you guys like this format, I'll do a little Q&A before each video. That way, you know, we can keep everything fresh and, yeah, get some questions answered. So anyways, that is all. You guys take care. Let's get busy. All right, so mounting this in here, like the mechanical stuff as far as dropping the other trans out and putting this one in, wasn't really video worthy. Probably watching me wrestle with this thing, putting it in here, is probably video worthy, and so I'll put a little bit of that in. But so the main thing is just, you know, getting it to work, which is, I mean, these trucks came with these trans, so I mean, it's not crazy, but the only different thing is that it's an LS1. So what is the main difference? Well, these are the Schoenfeld headers. I did have to clearance over here, and I think I talked about that earlier, but I had a clearance right there. I had to cut that off, that piece there, and then I clearanced it over here when I was mocking these up into the 20, or this transmission into the 20. So, yes. So now what I got to do is, this is a 4.8 flex plate, and let me see if I always get hung up on the crack. And this is just the stock converter for this 400. Now I have converter bolts. They are 10 millimeter. I will link their ARPs that I'm using. I'm also using ARP bolts. You can see them there. They're like those hex head deals. They're just 3/8, or I mean not 3/8, but 3/4, 12 point. And so then those went up in there. I really like those ARP bolts, just like 24 bucks from Summit, and I don't know, I just feel good about using them. In between there, you see there's like a little chrome like sleeve or whatever. That is just a Hughes piece. Several manufacturers make them, and all it does is
it extends the snout, I guess, of the converter into the crank. So it just makes sure that it's centered in there, because the LS1 style converters have a longer snout because of the distance between the back of the block, the flange, I guess, if you will, and then the crank position. So on a regular small block, the crank sits further back, which is the only difference. So on this flex plate, and sorry I had you upside down there, it's probably gonna look weird, but anyway, so on this flex plate, you can use it. It uses the same holes. I just had to waller these out a little bit. So I did a video about this when I installed into the 20, but in case you missed it, I just wanted to kind of go over that with you. So I'm going to bolt that in now, and then I'm also, like I said, I'm using the Arp bolts. I don't know if I got them down here. They're somewhere, and there's torque specs on their website, and you know, you just put this around up underneath the head, and then I put a little Loctite around the threads and put it in. So I got Loctite blue, and if I had red, I might use red. I don't know. Alright, while you were gone, I got the torque converter bolts torqued down. So it's up in there now, I don't know if you can see there. And then I got my 5 bolts up around the back of the trans. So those are all in and tight. A little Loctiter on them. Hey, what happened to my bolt there? What the hell? I can find that bolt. I think I lost it when I was doing the frickin' oil change out there or something. Dang it, I gotta find a bolt now. Anyways, yeah, so next up, I guess I'll try to secure the fill tube. I can try to get it over here and get it up onto the firewall. So let's do that next. Alright, I got the dipstick tube mounted, so now hopefully tomorrow we can add some fluid. Maybe we'll even start it up. I don't know. Let's see what else we got left. See all this splatter everywhere. This radiator came out of my K5, and it had previously ran an automatic transmission. So I knew that I didn't plug up the cooler lines, so that there was just going to be like dirt and nasty stuff. So I unloaded like a quarter can of brake cleanup in there and blew it out with my little bit of air, and then I did it like a couple times, and a bunch of nasty pink dirty stuff came out. So yeah, so anyway, they blew it all over everything. But anyway, so what I got going on today, I've got a cooler. I'm gonna run this deal up in the radiator, and then I'm gonna come out to my cooler, which is over here. I got this sucker out the wrecking yard a long time ago. I had it on the K5. It was cooling my power steering fluid. And probably be good to cool the power steering fluid on this sucker. But anyways, I didn't remember it leaking or anything. And I like it that it's got brackets already on it, and it looked like I had jimmied up something. So the plan tonight is to run the cooler lines up to the radiator from the trans, and then figure out where I'm going to mount my cooler. My big fan is over here, so this is where I want it. I'm probably just going to put it over here in this area somewhere, like right up there. I don't know. I got my condenser, and it's got the whatever you call that thing, the dryer is up there. So I don't know. I might have to put it over further. I don't know where I'm going to put it, but I'll figure it out. I'll pull the grill off and stuff. Alright, here we go. I just used some sheet metal screws here. Some well, not sheet metal, but just some self-tappers. So we got one across there, one there, and one there. I mean, it probably would have been okay without this right here, but this just kind of keeps it from moving around as much. So now it's, you know, once the hoses are through, it's going to keep it from moving maybe a little bit more once I tie the hoses down, but it's not too bad. I really don't like the kind, like this is, what do they call this? They call this the, like the plate and fin, right? No, I don't know. Anyways, these are pretty good coolers. I got this off of like I think I got this off of a Ford, in the Ford section of the wrecking yard a long time ago. And it's from like a, I don't know, big truck, like Excursion or something, I don't know. But anyways, I didn't know if it was for like oil or something. But anyways, it's nice and thick. Look how thick that sucker is. It's probably like 2 inches thick. And it's right in front of the big fan, and the big fan runs all the time. The little fan
comes on basically only when I turn my AC on, so that might have to change depending on how the automatic transmission fluid, how bad it heats things up. I may have to take it off of the switch and run it just straight from the PCM. So I may have to do that, but we'll see how that turns out. So, all right, here we go. So the out of the radiator, so the hot, which is the bottom feed, the bottom line out of the tranny is hot. It comes to the top of the radiator. Then out the bottom of the radiator, I got this loop-de-doop-de-doop-de here. It comes up, goes into the top of my cooler, runs down at the bottom, and then out comes the return, and then it hits my line right here. So there it is. So then this line goes back to the radiator. So what I'm going to plan on doing is I'm just going to double clamp everything, and you know, to make sure there's no leakage, since there's no like barbs on these. They're just like freaking like straight pipes, but if I double clamp them, they'll probably be all right. All right, so if you remember before with this trans and stuff, I wasn't able to get the braces that come off of the torque converter cover. Now I can get the torque converter cover on. I hacked the crap out of it, but I can put that on if I want to, and I might. But I wasn't able, because of the shape of the oil pan, to get the bars that come off, the support bars that go to the motor mounts. And so what those do is they kind of keep the case from moving around with the 4x4, because you got, you know, that torque, everything going through the transfer case. So I wasn't able to use those. So then, if you'll remember in the K20, I had bought a kit from DIY4X, and so it goes on the back of here. It's got a bushing, and then, you know, you kind of run a cross member. So I think what I'm going to do is make a tubular cross member. I've already got the bushing welded to like a plate, and what I think I might do is put like that that 120 wall 1.5 inch tubing. Maybe I'll run some to the frame and across to the other side. Maybe I might have to put like a little bend in it or something, or connect a couple pieces, but I don't know, I'll figure something out. But then I think I want to make it come over like here and then brace the cross member. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that with being back here, with being braced with another bushing, so I'm going to put poly bushings here, and then it's going to have a poly bushing here, and then just to kind of keep it from moving around and bouncing around and stuff like that. Okay guys, yeah, let me know what you think. I'm out. You guys have a good night. I appreciate you guys watching, and you guys are awesome.